Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack and this is a Datsun ZG. This is a real JDM unicorn of a car that I already have a massive soft spot for. I love the Datsun Z. I think it's, again, one of those cars. I have a soft spot for this Japanese stuff. But at the time when the Z came out, its main competitors, and this was really aimed at the American market, and over there it was pretty much English, British sports cars, so the MGs, stuff like that. And when the Z first came out, in terms of pricing, the standard cars only cost about $200 more than a normal MGB. So I think $3,530 or $50 was the price in 1970 or 71 for one of these cars, and an MGB was just $200 cheaper. The GT, which was slower than this car, far less advanced, not as reliable and worse built, well, the GT was actually quite a bit more expensive. So you can see how revolutionary the Z was. But what I am in now is extremely special. Just before we take it back, and I'll take you around why this car is so significant, let me tell you a little bit about how a Z drives. You've got a fantastic driving position, sitting pretty low down, and arms, good reach, all the controls work really well. The gearbox, it's got a fabulous, nice mechanical action. There's quite a bit of slop in there. I'm not sure if it's this particular car or if they're all like that, sir, but it's still really easy to use and really nice. It feels pretty solid, it feels well made. The dash layout is pretty, there's nothing weird there. This isn't obviously like an Italian car where you might find switches scattered around absolutely all over the place. It's warmed up, so lovely. The straight six, and I have a habit whenever I do my videos, I know it's a straight six, but I'm so used to saying V6, I always just say V6 anyway, which has got me in trouble in the past. So if I do in this video, ignore it. I know it's a straight six. This straight six is absolutely, it's a fantastic lump with the kind of character that only the old stuff really seems to be able to muster. Now these only weighed about 1,050 kilos, so they're quite light. So the power is pretty sufficient really for what they are. It certainly isn't massively quick. It doesn't feel super revvy, but it's nice and torquey, it's nice and relaxed. It's a lovely engine. Seems like you have to keep it above 4.5 to get it to pull properly, but when you do, it's just that old classic experience. It's fabulous, and it's aided by steering, which is really wonderful, communicative straight from the off center. It's actually quite slow geared. It's not a quick rack. It's not super agile, this car. It's not super fast, but it is just wonderful to drive. Feels like this kind of road, it just demolishes it. The steering is so tactile. Fabulous. Get into the corner, tip it in. It loads up as you're mid-corner. And again, lovely. Anyway, there's been plenty of stuff about normal Zs before, so let's take it back to the barn and I can tell you a bit more about why the ZG is so rare, so special, and so fantastically desirable. what makes this Z so special? Well, a clue is right here, and it's the thing that's most identifiably different from a normal Z, and that is this nose cone. The ZG was launched in 1971, and it was specifically to homologate, I can never say that word, this car for Group 4 racing. And the ZG is absolutely legendary because in 71 or 72, it won the Fuji Grand Champions series. I haven't been able to find any original footage of the race in 71 featuring the ZG, but online, by the race, I have managed to find a clip of the ZG 2 or 3 years ago of one ZG going around the Fuji circuit. I've always thought the Z was a handsome car, but I think that the streamlined longer nose makes it even prettier. But there are several detail changes, so I'm now going to take you through everything that's different about a ZG from the normal car. So the nose is the most obvious difference. It is longer for better aerodynamics, and the lights are now faired in, again, just to give it an edge in terms of wind resistance. On top of that, it is made out of fiberglass, so it is lighter than standard. Something else which will immediately sort of jump to the eye is these fender flares, which look quite incredibly rough, really. They're sort of just riveted in. There's no pretense to try and blend them into the bodywork, but they have been hugely influential on the JDM scene for like years and cars to come. So, for example, my friend Lee, who has a Z, which is called the Datsun, which I think was inspired by this kind of car, or certainly the racers, again has very similar sort of fender flares. So it's by no means the only one, but I would say it's one of the first sort of really influential cars that have had such a big sort of bearing on the car culture, Japanese car culture today. At the front end, the changes are completed with these fender mounted mirrors, which are more aerodynamic than the door mounted ones that were there before. They're not quite as effective, I could say, from my drive, but again, it is another special feature of the ZG. At the back, we have a spoiler to try and reduce lift, but just when you're thinking that this is just an aerodynamics package, I can tell you that a limited slip diff also came as standard. In Europe, Zs already came with a 5-speed manual box, but in the US you would normally get either a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed auto. So this, as standard, came with the 5-speed and the limited slip diff. It's also worth noting that this is a JDM only car. There was a kit available in the US, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but this was only available in the spec and in factory trim from Japan and for the Japanese market. Now, the stripes aren't a standard feature, these are decals, but they are inspired from the race cars, and I really like the look. In terms of paint, the ZG only came in 3 colours. Maroon, like this one, it has a name that I've now forgotten, it's maroon something or other, makes it sound a bit more exciting, but there is this maroon, there was white, and then I'm not sure if it was red or black, but anyway, it was 3 standard base colours. That was just to simplify the production process. Inside, it's pretty much standard Z, which is absolutely, there's nothing wrong with, because it's a really nice interior. One thing which is different is there is supposed to be a stopwatch. Now, I haven't been able to find a picture of that anywhere online. What I can see here is the clock has a very strange movable interface, so I presume that that is what the stopwatch is, but it's quite a quirky, fantastic little thing. I've never seen anything like that before. Apart from that, it is pretty standard Z. This car is pretty much original, but there are a couple of differences. The first is the wheels. This has some absolutely perfect, period-correct magnesium Wanatabes. Believe it or not, these came from the factory with some absolutely horrible things. So I believe they were just delivery wheels to be able to roll the car around, because they knew that the racers would put something else on anyway. So they may not be the original wheels, but I personally wouldn't want them on a car like this. I believe that Zs normally came with SUs. I'm not sure if the Mikunis were a factory option, but they were very frequently updated, and this car does have the Mikunis on there, so they may put out a bit more power than standard. The straight six is a single overhead camshaft. It's a aluminium head with a steel bottom end, and it produces in standard trim about 151 horsepower. That's enough to take a Z from 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds and up to a top speed of 125 miles an hour. Presumably with this nose, even in terms of aerodynamics, the ZG might have had a little more on top. It's not something I've been able to find out. Suspension-wise, the ZG is pretty much a standard Z. So that means McPherson struts at the front, fully independent, and fully independent at the back, but a little bit of an idiosyncrasy here. This actually uses, some people might look at it and say it's McPherson. It isn't. It's actually what's called Chapman struts. Obviously brought in by Lotus for their Formula One cars in the 60s, I think. Quite an odd idiosyncratic setup, but obviously can be made to work really, really well. Now, in the US, you could get the nose kit. So that was available as an option to enable the Datsun to race in SCC racing, and it was fabulously successful. I believe winning its class for about 6 years in a row in the 70s. But the official cars like this one are just really, really special things. And I am amazed because they trade for about, a really good one will go for around $100,000, maybe a little bit less. And in the current climate, I think it's just incredible that these don't go for more money. It's so significant. It's had such an impact on Japanese car culture to this day that it almost seems to me as if they're a little bit underpriced. In short, these were just absolutely fantastic cars that improved on an already fabulous car, the normal Z, with incredible racing history and with a real influence on what was going to become the Japanese car scene in years to come. It's been a real delight to see this in the flesh. I have to thank JHW Classics for letting me have a look around this and drive it. They supply cars for films and other projects like that, so do have a look on their website. Thank you so much for watching. If you have an interesting car, please do get in touch with me. Instagram is the best way. Lastly, please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I really look forward to seeing you for the next one.